Hello and welcome to another episode of All the Mods 9. I think we're up to episode 12 now, so moving right swiftly along. Uh, Last episode we did all of this setup. We decided we would passively make tungsten ingots, tungsten steel ingots. We decided we would passively just dilute or distill diluted acids back into their full strength forms. We decided we'd passively make sulfuric acid, uh, hydrochloric acid, polyethylene, and regular ethylene, as well as hydrofluoric acid over here, and polytetrafluoroethylene, or PTFE. So we did a lot of passiving. We also got ourselves indium. I'm not sure I went over this very well last episode, but something I did have to change here is that this thing uses 4 buckets of sulfuric acid and it completes a recipe in 15 ticks. So it consumes all the sulfuric acid we make, and it consumed the backlog we had, just to make indium concentrate, which we react with aluminum dust. And that gets us indium dust, aluminium sulfite dust, and lead zinc solution. We could process these things to get some sulfur, lead, silver, zinc, and water out, as well as more sulfur, more aluminum, and oxygen. Not terribly worried about it, although I may change my mind. No, we're fine. 1.8 million sulfur, totally alright there. I did add a level emitter. I just set the indium dust to 5,000. And this has been running overnight for us. We almost have 5,000 indium. So when this is finally over, we can begin our long journey to 200,000 buckets of sulfuric acid. Last time we also upgraded some machines to extreme voltage. We built ourselves the supercritical phase shifter, and we made more than enough antimatter. I think we are still rebuilding. Oh, we have uranium now. Okay, we're no longer rebuilding our backlog. Looks like all the pipes are filled and we are finally getting raw uranium again. So yeah, we got indium, we passived a bunch of stuff, we built the supercritical phase shifter, got a bunch of antimatter, we automated it to always be daytime. And some things I didn't go over last episode, but I did do, you may have caught it in the quest book, is I went through, I made acetic acid, the vinyl acetate, polyvinyl acetate, butyraldehyde. I don't know how to pronounce that, I'll be honest. I just made it up. And liquid polyvinyl butyrol, all to make laminated glass, so we can make some IV machines like the cutter. Also made the IV chemical reactor. We made this new silicon boule. And I changed my EBFs. None of them have program 1 set anymore. However, this is a no program recipe, which does conflict with this recipe on program 2. So I put the recipe for the phosphorus doped monocrystalline silicon boule in this electric blast furnace, in this pattern provider, and this one is set to program 2. I was concerned at first that it would produce the lower tier silicon boule and just lock up. But we can see if I order one, it has to first make the phosphorus. But it looks like it's running the correct recipe for us. We can tell by the time it takes, 300 seconds. Because this thing is a 600-second recipe at high voltage, and we're running at evil extreme. So half the time, 4 times the power. But I think we're okay in that regard. In addition to making a new tier of silicon wool, we also cut it, and we made a bunch of laser engravers back in our clean room. So these are all still at high voltage and hooked into our 16 amp energy converter. They've got the pattern providers right behind them. And I took the time to make the colored lenses. We've now got all of that sorted. I cut the MPIC wafer into some chips. And additionally, I upgraded our patterns for the other wafers. So in the laser engraver, at high voltage, we can process phosphorus doped wafers with our lenses, and when it was just silicon wafers, it only made one LPIC wafer. Now it makes 4. When we get to Naquata, or Naquata, it'll be 8. When we get to neutronium, it'll be 16. So we've still got a ways to go before that, but our cutter just cuts things for us still. But we did upgrade all of these wafers to use the new phosphorus doped wafer instead. And I think that catches up where we've been. Let's accept some rewards. So we have ourselves a clean slate here. I made a few IV machines. I have not placed all of these yet, but that's alright. Let's see. We got one IV pump, that's nice, and an IV piston. Nothing terribly exciting there, but that's okay. I did also want to talk about what I do when I go off and make patterns for the new voltage tier, and it's fairly simple. I'll type in JEI to look up the covers, so like the robot arm, the conveyor module, the fluid regulator, and the pump. I'll make recipes for all of them except the fluid regulator. So I'll make a recipe for the pump, I'll make a recipe for the conveyor module. You can see at IV, these conveyor modules no longer accept regular rubber to make. And I'll make them for the robot arm. I'll also make the electric piston. This is not a cover, but it is a crafting component for machines. And I'll make the electric motor. And all of the bits that it needs inside. So like the small tungsten steel gear, plates, rods, cable. So on and so on. If we look at the cable, this is in the assembler, and again, it takes either silicone rubber or the styrene butadiene rubber. So we can no longer use regular rubber to coat our cables. We also need PVC, or polyvinyl chloride, sheets to coat it. Generally, that's all I'll do. I'll also add in some things that I eventually plan on moving out of here. So, like buzzsaw blades, the robot arms I keep up here because they use circuits to create them. Same with the auto maintenance hatch and the energy converters. I'll also put in recipes for certain machines like laser engravers, uh, chemical reactors, the ore processing setup, and our multi block machines, or at least the controller for the multi blocks, if I know I need to make several. Speaking of making several multi blocks, this episode, I'm thinking we probably don't want to build in this chunk right here. Might be nice to keep these two chunks clear so that we have a nice like entrance into our clean room. So what I'm going to do instead is probably build in this chunk here two vacuum freezers, two distillation towers, so that we can get ender air and nether air, get those going with distillation and freezing, all in the pursuit of nitric acid. Well, in the pursuit of nitrogen dioxide. We'll get that going. We'll make nitric acid, and I'll probably set it up over in this chunk, the like a passive setup for it. Just tell it to stop when we have maybe 10,000 buckets. And we can make Aqua Regia. Looks like it's used in inert nether star essence and centrifuging. So it might be nice to also passive this stuff. It's a quick recipe, it's just nitric acid, hydrochloric acid. With Aqua Regia and nitric acid, I'm going to keep working towards this RTM alloy coil block. I'll build some large chemical reactors, probably two, to put recipes in, and then two more to try and make the diaminobenzidine and phthalic acid, and whatever else this requires, like naphthalene or dimethylbenzene. In the pursuit of making polybenzimidazole on passive. And hopefully that'll take out a pretty large chunk of IV for us. We'll have to do the EV energy hatches so that we can get IV energy hatches. That's okay. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started on making some vacuum freezers, making some distillation towers, and I'll be back in a bit once I've got that all set up. Once we are collecting our gas and distilling it. And here we are. Just like that, two distillation towers, one with 6 outputs for nether air, and one with 7 for ender air. Just like we have for the overworld air, I'm just using dimensional tanks with gas collectors in their respective dimensions. And I had to chunk load those chunks. So we freeze it, we put it in our IV input hatch. Eventually this builds up and it starts running its recipe. These I made with the 4 amp energy hatch. And the reason I did that was just to make them IV with only one energy hatch. I could have made them IV with two EV energy hatches, but if there's a one block solution, it just takes a transformer, the EV energy hatch, and a coil. Might as well go for it. It didn't take too much longer. Same on this side. 4 amp energy hatches powering these things at IV. And I got a little bit ahead of myself. So I did go ahead and make nitric acid and aqua regia. Over here, all I did was add a chemical reactor. This thing has a fluid regulator to pull in the water, the oxygen gas, the nitrogen dioxide from this interface, and it just auto ejects nitric acid back into the interface. And I told it I only wanted 50,000 buckets of nitric acid. I may increase that. Right next to it is a mixer. The nitric acid and the hydrochloric acid mixed together to give us aqua regia. And I only told it to make 1,000. We'll see if I end up changing these things. I suspect I will. And I set up this area right here for some more automation. And I thought I'd bring you along with me. Before we do that, I should also mention I got a little carried away. I got tired of waiting on the wire mill. So I think it has the most patterns aside from the lathe and the bender. I got tired of waiting on those machines. They were all at high voltage. So I have upgraded all of these machines now to insane voltage. They're now all at IV. And it is considerably faster. The nice thing about overclocking things in GregTech is it just keeps getting faster and faster. And if we look at our power usage, we've gone up a little bit. We're using almost 1 million FE a tick. Still not even close to the 200 million provided by the fusion reactor. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Now the next thing for us to do here, hold on. Oh, we get some extra radon from the ZPM quest. The main thing we want to do is we want to process sheldonite. It's called sheldonite because of the Big Bang Theory. Because technically this metal, or this ore, is called cooperite in reality. I think it's just a bad joke that they tried to make in some time ago. Because the main character of Big Bang Theory is Sheldon Cooper. Anyway, all we have to do for this is we will macerate it. That'll make it crushed sheldonite or cooperite. We're going to want to put that through a chemical bath. In our chemical bath, we want to use the chemical bath because if we look at how you can make purified sheldonite, if you put it with mercury, you have a chance at palladium dust. And palladium dust will be very useful to us. So we're just going to set this one to auto eject crushed into the chemical bath. The chemical bath, I think we will set up to auto eject into the top. We'll have to put an interface on top of here. We'll also need an export bus. To export sheldonite into the macerator. It's going to output crushed into the chemical bath. We need the interface to stock mercury. I'll grab a bucket. So we're also going to need a fluid regulator. We use a high voltage one because they're fast. We're also going to need a... Actually, I don't think we need a fluid filter for this because there's only one fluid. So I think we're fine with just the fluid regulator. Put that on the top of our chemical bath, and we configure it to import. And now this thing is just full of mercury. This will make us purified sheldonite and the palladium and stone dust. What we'll want to do next is chemical react purified sheldonite with nitric acid. So let's see. I have to think how we should do this because I need to get purified sheldonite into here as well as nitric acid. One thing we could do is use like an export bus to force nitric acid into here and a robot arm to try and pull the purified sheldonite in. The only thing is we would have to somehow block these parts of the interface so that purified sheldonite couldn't get pushed into here. Which is possible. If we take palladium dust and we tell it to stock most of the inputs with palladium dust, I'm going to set all of these to 1. That way we can stack palladium in here. And the other output was stone dust. So now I can always put more stone dust, more palladium in, but I shouldn't be able to put anything else. I'm shift clicking sheldonite, so nothing else is able to go into our interface. Just mercury, palladium dust, and stone dust. So if I make ourselves doesn't need to be fast. We just use a medium voltage robot arm, I believe. Let's upgrade it. Let's use let's try and use an EV one. We're going to need an item filter for this. Put the robot arm on the left side. This robot arm, we want to put the item filter in and tell it to import. And we have to wait until we get the purified sheldonite to be able to actually tell it to only import purified sheldonite. What we're doing is we're trying to make platinum group sludge. There are a lot of ores that can do this. We're going to make platinum group sludge 4 at a time by using sheldonite and nitric acid. We'll also get sulfuric nickel solution. We're not too interested in that, but we can keep it. So I am going to grab some more interfaces. This interface, we want to stock the nitric acid, and we want to automatically eject so platinum group sludge dust only uses 100 millibuckets at a time. This will transfer 256 millibuckets a tick, even at medium voltage. Perfect for us. We'll want to set it to import, and I should make a fluid interface for this, or a fluid filter, although this should be fine. So we're going to pull in the purified sheldonite. We're going to pull in nitric acid from the side. We will auto eject the sulfuric solution that we get. And the platinum sludge, we will centrifuge. So we can auto eject sludge to the right to our centrifuge. We look at the uses. We need to also give this aqua regia, and it's going to give us a bunch of stuff. So I think we'll do a similar thing here. We're going to tell it to stock the aqua regia. We're going to grab ourselves an electric pump. Tell the pump to import. We will auto eject what it makes. This stuff makes raw platinum powder, raw palladium powder, inert metal mixture, the rarest metal mixture, and platinum sludge residue. I think we're going to use the same trick from before where we filled this interface up so that we can pass the inert metal mixture to the right without issue. So here we'll put platinum sludge residue, rarest metal mixture, raw palladium powder, and raw platinum. We'll just put them in here twice. That way, there's only room for these things. We should never have a case where it outputs the inert metal mixture into our system, because we need to chemical react inert metal mixture. Get an item filter for this as well. I believe we're going to need a pump and our interface. We chemical react inert metal mixture with sulfuric acid. And that'll give us rhodium sulfate, hydrogen gas, and this ruthenium tetroxide dust. I think we're safe to just auto export that into our system. There shouldn't be any issue with that. because then we can chemical react. I need more interfaces. And I could use more robot arms. I'll use just one. And of course, a filter. And I'm going to need one more pump. So our chemical reactor is going to take the ruthenium tetroxide that we get. It's also going to take some carbon. So we need to tell it we need ruthenium tetroxide. And then we need carbon dust. We can give this a crafting card just in case we ever run out of carbon dust. We have a recipe to make that stuff in our system. We're going to need the robot arm, on the top here. Again, with the item filter set to keep exact, we're going to want it to keep exact 2 carbon. And once we have some ruthenium tetroxide, we can use that to keep exact 5 of those. And then our electrolyzer over here, we need to make sure this auto ejects back into the interface. Our electrolyzer, we're going to want the rhodium sulfate and a pump set to import. We'll also auto eject what it makes. Rhodium sulfate electrolyzed will make sulfur trioxide, oxygen gas, and rhodium dust. Just in case, I'm going to put a fluid filter on this pump for rhodium sulfate, since it produces other fluids. Now all we need to do is power these machines. I always forget to mute them. That might be nice to not bombast our ears. Here's the purified sheldonite, which I can now put into our robot arms filter. It's producing the platinum group sludge, which is being centrifuged. With aqua regia into a bunch of stuff. Here's our inert metal mixture. We can now put that in the filter. Inert metal mixture and sulfuric acid will start producing us the ruthenium tetroxide. Now we can set in this robot arm the 5 ruthenium tetroxide. We need our bucket for rhodium sulfate to filter this electric pump. Now the only question is, did we miss anything? Just ruthenium. Very cool. Last thing is to make the recipe for the RTM alloy dust. Ruthenium, tungsten, molybdenum, RTM. Just like that, we've set up a portion of the platinum line, and we set it up to run automatically for us. This will go through all of our sheldonite or cooperite, which is alright. Not worried about it. Primarily because there is a bee. So we can centrifuge a platinum bee spawn egg to get a sheldonite bee spawn egg. And this guy produces combs, which gives us raw sheldonite. So we can leave this running indefinitely, assuming we have enough aqua regia and nitric acid being produced, which I think we should be. These things don't run very often. I think the main benefit of using the interface with robot arms and electric pumps is that we aren't asking applied energistics to push things into our machines or pull things out of our machines, which can become a little bit pricey in terms of ticks per second or TPS. So I think we're in a good spot using the robot arms from Greg Tech to pull things in. At least I hope so. Let's go ahead and claim our rewards. We get more platinum group sludge, some more inert metal mixture, some rhodium sulfate and ruthenium tetroxide, and the ruthenium dust. So that's how I go about making something passively. Now we are passively getting rhodium. Oh, I thought that might be a quest. Rhodium we need for making rhodium plated palladium, which is used a lot in LUV. So we'll end up using this sooner than expected. And ruthenium, well, we need that stuff now. This has to be at EV. We've got ourselves an EV mixer on program 1. Let's go ahead and start setting up some of these patterns. We'll need to turn it into 2x wire. We'll need to turn it into wire, which means we need to make ingots of the stuff, which means we need to cook the stuff. Did not actually read this. EV nichrome. I think our blast furnace right here can do those things. Yeah. Yeah, I don't actually need to walk over. I always forget I can just type in the name of the machine. Liquid nichrome, easy. Just put that through an extractor. And we bend plates into foil. This is in an assembler at EV, which we have now. Oh, I'm completely out of space. Well, we have another one that is at EV. So I'm going to put it in that one. And now, order 16. This is going to take a while. We need more ruthenium. One thing I failed to mention, the high voltage polarizer, we weren't able to make the IV one because it requires vanadium gallium rods. Vanadium gallium, one of those things. We are waiting on this RTM alloy oil. So, all that said, I'll come back once we've waited a little while, let this thing run for a bit, and once we have ourselves plenty of RTM alloy dust and the 16 coils we need. Alright, I know I said I'd come back once I had the RTM alloy coils, but I got a little carried away. So this is still getting us ruthenium. You can see we've built up a pretty sizable stockpile. And same with the rhodium. I say I got carried away because I went and made the high-speed steel G coil blocks. It was just a straight upgrade, very easy for us to do. This thing still runs at EV, so it hasn't been upgraded in power. I just needed the RTM alloy coils to make high-speed steel coils. That's not all, though. I did get a little bit carried away. While I was waiting for that to craft, hold on, trying to avoid some spoilers. We'll get there. While I was waiting for that to craft, I learned something very powerful, and I have to share it. So if I open my inventory here, I have five, if you count night vision, permanent buffs. Strength 5, Regeneration 5, Resistance 5, and Nourishment. Nourishment makes it so my hunger bar doesn't deplete. Regeneration makes you regenerate health. Strength gives you more attack damage. And resistance reduces the damage you take. I don't know by how much, but I assume it's by a lot. And we're getting those from this infusion pylon. If you haven't seen this before, this is amazing. All you need is a potion filter. Take some cyan terracotta, a bit of green dye, and emerald and glass to make a potion filter. And then you need to have a potion with an effect that lasts more than 1 minute. Once you have that potion effect active and on you, you right click with the potion filter in your hand to apply the potion effect to the potion filter. You have to do that until you get 1 hour of accrued time on the potion filter. So each minute counts as only 1 minute of time on the potion filter. You keep applying it over and over again until you've built up 1 hour. Now, this is only difficult for nourishment. The other potion effects were very easy. We just use some reliquary. We have the apothecary cauldron, we have the apothecary mortar, and you can make potion essences. And these potion essences, they have different effects. If you look at their recipe, it'll tell you a way to make them. Some of the ways are hidden, or not explained in JEI. I initially made a health boost potion to give us extra maximum health, but every time it reapplies, it takes away all the extra health it gives you. So it was like I was being hurt over and over again. Didn't think it was worth it. Instant health we can't use because it doesn't have a duration. Could have gone with invisibility. But yeah, regeneration, we could use eggs and fertile essence. Resistance, I used magma cream and diamonds. I wanted to use saturation as well, but that also doesn't have a duration. And I believe strength, I used molten core and a gold nugget. But the idea is pretty simple. I put one gold nugget in here, one molten core into the apothecary. You can see grinding this up will give me a potion essence of strength 2 for a minute. I can then put that potion essence back in with another molten core, and now it's strength 3. I can keep doing this, building up the essence, so now it's strength 5, and you can see it'll last for 4 minutes. I can continue to do this for quite a while. And then brewing it is like you brew any other potion. Well, similar, not exactly the same. We take some water, we put it in our cauldron, put the potion essence in. We can add some redstone dust. So it should make a strength 5 potion for 5 minutes. We give this nether wart. You can see once it starts really bubbling, that's how you know it's complete. So I'd say by now it's definitely ready. And then you craft some condensed potion vials. It's just glass panes. And you can take all 3 out. Now it said it was going to make a 5-minute long one, but instead it's 39 minutes long. And the reason being is that redstone dust we applied. Then you drink it, you use your potion filter, drink it again, use the potion filter, and repeat until your potion filter is full. It's very powerful. There was no nourishment potion, but I found that I could use like a nut butter and jam sandwich. I thought that was easy enough. I just grew some strawberries and some pecans or pecans, put them through a Farmer's Delight cooking pot with some glass bottles to make nut butter, and I made strawberry jam, and those two with some bread could make the nut butter and jam sandwich. It then took a lot of running around to deplete my hunger bar so I could eat more of those sandwiches. But it is doable. And it is incredibly powerful. This stuff, all 4 of these in my infusion pylon, they work anywhere. So I can go to other dimensions and I will still have these effects. Something else between cuts was I finally set up a little backpack for the Ergast to hold the Apotheosis Enchanted or Apotheosis Affixed helmets, trophies. Every now and then I've just been coming through here and clearing it out. The main thing I'm looking for here are these. The orange ones, I think they're called Mythic level or Ancient maybe. I think Mythic. The idea though is that, we can take these mythic affixed heads trophies. They are helmets. I'm not going to go through all these. We can take them to a salvaging table and salvage them into God forged pearls. You can see I've done this a few times now. I have 400 and something. Now, the thing I've been holding off on showing, I passived polybenzimidazole. I went through all of these chemicals and I passived every single one of them. What do I mean by that? I didn't just use chemical reactors. I used large chemical reactors for every single one. I have a mixer that makes us nitration mixture. There's an input hatch right here, and this is just automatically ejecting into the input hatch. None of these are wall shared either. I probably should have wall shared some, but I wanted to make them all individually. I thought that'd be more interesting. Nitration mixture with chlorobenzene. We can essentially go through the quest line, and that explains exactly what I've done. I have the nitration mixer just being made in the mixer. That plus chlorobenzene is making nitrochlorobenzene. The chlorobenzene is coming from right here. We've got an input bus with a circuit setting set. And a lot of these I had to set level emitters on, so I don't just go through all my benzene or all my chlorine making these things. The other thing you'll notice here is I put the benzene at the far end of the interface, and I'm using pipes to just pipe fluids back into the interface, back into our system. One of the really nice things about GregTech input buses, input hatches, output hatches is that they auto eject, they auto input, but I couldn't do that here for benzene. So I had to purposefully face this benzene input hatch away and use a pump. In this pump, I applied a filter for just benzene to import. If I had benzene as the first thing in the interface, as it's used, as it gets pulled into my input hatch, there's a chance that a fluid gets pushed into the interface right when it's empty, and now there's some other fluid right here. Whether it be hydrochloric acid or dichlorobenzene, any other fluid. Then my input hatch could pull that in, and that would clog up the system. It could no longer run. So instead, and that would also cause it to have to wait until my AE2 system could import the fluid before it could push more benzene into the interface. So having it in the last slot here lets it push benzene from my AE2 system into the interface and also accept fluids into my AE2 system from the other slots in the interface without interfering with each other. Which I found just works better. We have all these output hatches. Many of these machines have level emitters just set to 100 buckets. And one thing that I haven't done yet that I also like to do is I can take one input hatch from one chemical reactor, and I can point it at the output hatch from another chemical reactor. This only works in cases where there's like one fluid output, because if there are multiple, there's no guarantee that you'll always get the same fluid in the same hatch. There's no like locking of this hatch to only accept dichlorobenzidine. It's very unfortunate, but we manage. So what I haven't done yet is I haven't pointed these at each other. Now with those pointed at each other, we can see they start running. This is taking the dichlorobenzidine that it's making, and it's using that to make diaminobenzidine. Which is what the zinc dust is, just a catalyst. It's not consumed ever, but you do need it for it to work. All of these just have improved pipe upgrades. I didn't want to put too high of an upgrade in there, even though most of these machines can run on, like, if we saw them actually running, yeah, like this recipe is a 3-tick recipe. They're very fast. And I also need to switch this ammonia that I'm producing in this large chemical reactor, just mixing nitrogen and hydrogen on program 1. I also need to point that into this input hatch. I believe that's just about everything. Same with, so I configured all of my interfaces this way that are accepting inputs, where the input fluid is at the very last slot in the interface. It doesn't auto pool. Instead, it uses a pump with a filter. Some things that weren't covered in the quest line here. We have dichlorobenzene, we have phenol. When it talks about phthalic acid, it just says pick either naphthalene, or dimethylbenzene. It doesn't really tell you which one to go with. I went with dimethylbenzene instead of naphthalene because if I can find it in here, you could do distillation of like wood tar and charcoal byproducts to get it, or you can use your large chemical reactor, just mix methane and benzene directly. We've gotten a lot of rewards. All of these are using the regular IV energy hatch and not the 4 amp IV energy hatch, primarily because the 4 amp energy hatch costs, it's hard enough for us to make at this point that I didn't want to use it. The phthalic acid I had to set up a little bit differently. Oh, I never gave this oxygen. That's what's missing. Because when you make phthalic acid using dimethylbenzene, you get phthalic acid and water. And without knowing which output hatch would get phthalic acid, which output hatch would get water, I had to set them both up such that they could pump water into a trash can or pump phthalic acid into an interface. So this is the only one that has a little bit extra setup. In that it uses 2 pumps with 2 filters. Nothing too crazy. But yeah. Now we're making polybenzimidazole passively. And it only took I think, oh man, 12 large chemical reactors plus a mixer? Yeah, sorry, it was exhausting. I don't know if that explanation, if any of it made any sense at all. I really should have put like signposts down. Like we make chlorobenzene in this one, we make nitrochlorobenzene in this one, but it's hard to delineate which ones are which because I built them all touching. Over in this one, I think it's the it uses the nitrochlorobenzene, so that must make it dichlorobenzidine. This one uses ammonia. I don't know what that makes it. Diaminobenzidine, apparently. This one makes ammonia. I believe this last one here makes phenol. No, I was wrong. It makes dichlorobenzene. I guess the only way to really tell is by looking at their level emitters. This one makes phenol for us. And this one makes chromium trioxide. The chromium trioxide we use to make potassium dichromate and saltpeter. I just started ore processing saltpeter for saltpeter dust. Chromium trioxide we can make in a chemical reactor. It's just chromium and oxygen. Potassium dichromate, we need that to make the phthalic acid when we use dimethylbenzene. Otherwise, we would use potassium dust and naphthalene. Naphthalene you can only get by distilling coal tar, which coal tar, yeah, you can pyrolyze coal for coal tar, but I didn't feel like making another distillation tower, or a pyrolyze oven for that matter. This chemical reactor is making us our potassium dichromate. This one makes the phthalic acid. The dimethylbenzene is made in this chemical reactor. I believe this one's diphenyl isophthalate. Yeah, the chemical names are painful. And then the diphenyl isophthalate is used to make the polybenzimidazole. The nice thing about making polybenzimidazole is it also gives you phenol. You use it to make bisphenol A, you use it to make diphenyl isophthalate. but in using the diphenyl isophthalate, you get some phenol back. This area is noisy and we are so close. There's just a little bit more for us to do. I batch crafted a bunch of IV energy hatches, a bunch of 16 amp converters. I don't think we need any more of these bits. One thing I was thinking of doing was upgrading all of these hatches from high voltage to insane. Make them run a little bit faster. Not something we have to do today. I think, I don't know about you guys, but I could use a little break. And I think I'll come back next time. Hopefully, we'll make some nanocircuits. Finish up IV once and for all. If you made it through to the very end, thank you for watching. Hope you have a marvelous rest of your day. Take care and bye bye.